There is a moment that happens in millions of homes every night, around 7 or 8 o'clock, when a tired parent carries a tired baby toward a dark room and wishes, sometimes desperately, that this part of the day would just be over already. The bath skipped because there was no time. The song left out because you forgot. The book replaced by 5 minutes of phone scrolling while the baby finally closes their eyes. You got them down, that is what matters. Except there is something happening inside your baby's brain during the hour before sleep that most parents never hear about. Something that has nothing to do with whether they fall asleep quickly or stay asleep through the night. Something that shapes how their nervous system responds to stress, how their brain learns to move from high alert to safety, and how deeply they understand, at a level far below language, that the world is a place where they are held. Most parents know that routines help babies sleep. What they don't know is why. And the why changes everything about how you show up in that last hour of the day. If this is already making you see bedtime differently, hit the like button and subscribe, it really helps. And drop a comment telling me how old your little one is right now. I love knowing who I'm talking to. Your baby's brain is not a small version of an adult brain. It is a brain at the most active period of construction it will ever experience. In the first year of life alone, roughly 1 million new neural connections form every single second. The architecture being built right now, the pathways between neurons that will govern how your child regulates emotion, manages stress, and feels about themselves, is being shaped by everything that happens to them, including, and especially, what happens at the end of every day. Between birth and around 18 months, something important is developing in a small region of your baby's brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. This is the structure responsible for regulating circadian rhythm, the internal clock that tells the body when to be alert and when to rest. At birth, this system is almost entirely undeveloped. Babies have no meaningful melatonin rhythm. Their sleep is scattered across the day and night without pattern. The circadian system does not mature on its own. It is entrained, which means it is set by external cues. Light, temperature, feeding times, and most powerfully, the repeated sensory pattern of what happens before sleep each night. Every night, your baby's developing brain is looking for the signal, the consistent sequence of experience that tells it, this is the shape of how the day ends. This is what safety feels like before we let go of consciousness. A bedtime routine gives the suprachiasmatic nucleus the repeated environmental input it needs to build a stable rhythm. Babies who have a predictable pre-sleep sequence, bath, feeding, skin contact, a particular song or voice or smell, show measurably earlier melatonin onset than babies without one, meaning their brain chemistry begins preparing for sleep sooner and the sleep itself is more restorative. But the circadian system is only part of what's happening. There is a second system running alongside it, and this one matters even more for who your baby is becoming. Your baby cannot regulate their own stress response. This is not a temporary inconvenience of infancy. It is a neurological fact with a specific name, co-regulation. The part of the brain responsible for calming the stress response, the prefrontal cortex, does not come online until the mid-20s. Until then, children borrow the regulatory capacity of the adults around them. When your nervous system is calm, your baby's nervous system uses yours to settle. When you are present, warm, and predictable in the moments before sleep, you are quite literally doing neurological work their brain cannot yet do alone. The hormone at the center of this is cortisol, the primary stress hormone. At the end of a day full of stimulation, new input, and the small stresses of being a very young human navigating a very large world, your baby's cortisol is elevated. The transition to sleep requires that elevation to drop. But babies cannot bring their own cortisol down. They need a co-regulator, a calm, familiar presence whose nervous system communicates safety to theirs through touch, voice, smell, and eye contact. Research measuring cortisol in infants consistently shows that the presence of a responsive caregiver in the pre-sleep window accelerates the drop from alert arousal to the physiological state that makes real sleep possible. When the routine is rushed or skipped entirely, when the baby is laid down still at high arousal without that regulated co-presence, the cortisol drop is slower, sleep is harder to reach, and the nervous system settles into rest in a state of mild activation rather than genuine safety. Now, most parents who skip the bedtime routine are not doing it out of carelessness. They are doing it because they are exhausted, because the day was long, because the baby was already falling asleep in the car and moving them seemed like a gamble not worth taking, because there is another child who also needs them, or a partner working late, or a sink full of dishes that will still be there in the morning but feel urgent right now. The skipping makes complete sense. That is exactly why it is worth understanding what gets skipped along with it. The common understanding of a bedtime routine is that it trains the baby to expect sleep. That is true as far as it goes. But that framing puts all the weight of the routine on the outcome, on whether the baby falls asleep faster or sleeps longer, and misses what is actually happening in your baby's brain and body during the routine itself. Your baby is not just learning to sleep. They are learning how to come down from the world. They are learning night after night what the movement from alertness to rest feels like, what their nervous system does with your presence, what the particular sound of your voice in a dark room means about whether they are safe. They are learning the shape of an ending. And a brain that learns a safe, predictable ending to every single day is building something that reaches far beyond sleep patterns. Something that will still be there when your baby is a teenager sitting near you in a way that means something, even when they don't have the words for it. What makes the bedtime routine work is not the bath or the song or the particular order of things you have settled into. It is the repetition of a sensory sequence in the presence of a regulated caregiver. Those two things together, predictable sequence plus your calm body, trigger something in your baby's brain that nothing else can replicate. The hippocampus, the brain structure most responsible for memory formation and pattern recognition, begins responding to environmental sequences earlier than almost any other cognitive function. By 3 months, your baby's brain is already detecting patterns in what happens before sleep. By 6 months, those patterns have become anticipatory, meaning your baby's nervous system begins shifting toward rest before the sequence is even complete because it has learned what the sequence leads to. The bath alone starts the cortisol drop. Your voice alone begins the melatonin signal. The body learns what is coming and prepares because you have shown it what comes next, night after night after night. This is what researchers studying early childhood call experience-dependent development. The brain builds itself around what repeatedly happens to it. Bedtime is one of the most reliable repeated experiences in your baby's first years of life, which makes it one of the most powerful architects of their developing nervous system. Oxytocin is released during the physical contact of a bedtime routine, the bath, the feeding, being held and rocked, the warmth of skin against skin. Oxytocin directly suppresses cortisol. It signals the body that threat is absent. It is the same hormone released during birth and breastfeeding, and your baby's brain responds to it the same way every time, by moving toward rest, toward openness, toward safety. If you're finding this helpful, please subscribe and turn on notifications. I upload new videos every week, and I'd hate for you to miss one. Your support is what makes this channel possible, and it genuinely means the world to me. Now, there are 5 things your baby does at bedtime that look like problems. Every single one of them is information. The baby who fights sleep is almost always a baby whose cortisol spike was missed. The window for the routine is narrow, usually a 30 to 45-minute span, when your baby shows the first tired signals, the eye rub, the gaze going soft, the sudden quiet. Past that window, a second cortisol wave hits, and the baby who seemed almost asleep is suddenly wired. Fighting sleep is not stubbornness. It is a nervous system that got past the drop and is now climbing again. The baby who needs the exact same song, the same blanket, the same order of things every single night, is telling you that their hippocampus is working. Pattern recognition at this stage is safety. Sameness is not rigidity. It is a developing brain doing exactly what it is supposed to do. The baby who wants to nurse or feed to sleep is using one of the oldest co-regulation mechanisms in human biology. Sucking activates the vagus nerve, which directly downregulates the stress response. Your baby is not developing a bad habit. They are using the most effective self-regulation tool their body currently has access to. The baby who stares at your face in the dark just before their eyes finally close is social referencing one last time before losing consciousness. Sleep requires surrendering alertness. For a baby, surrendering alertness means trusting completely that the environment is safe. They are checking your face for that confirmation. A calm, soft face in that moment tells their nervous system, you can let go now, everything is fine. The baby who wakes the instant you set them down is not manipulating you. Their skin contains thermoreceptors that detect the drop in temperature when your body warmth is removed. Their vestibular system registers the shift in position. Their olfactory system loses the scent that has been telling them all along that the safe person is near. 3 simultaneous sensory alarms go off at once, and the nervous system that was just settling spikes back into alert. The solution is not faster movement or a firmer mattress. It is more time in arms before the transfer, more of the routine's sensory input allowed to fully complete its work. Go back to that tired parent in the dark room, the one who skipped the bath, left out the song, set the baby down a little faster than usual because the day was long and the to-do list was longer. That parent was not failing. They were doing what exhausted people do, finding the shortest distance between 2 points. And the baby fell asleep. The night passed, nothing dramatic happened, but something quiet happened, something the baby could not name and the parent could not see. The nervous system that needed to come all the way down only came partway. The cortisol that needed to drop did, eventually, but without the co-regulator to accelerate it. The brain that was looking for the pattern, for the familiar sequence of sensory experience that means the day is ending safely, found something different instead. It found an ending that came fast and without shape, and it filed that away, the way developing brains file everything away, as information about what endings feel like. This is not catastrophic. One skipped routine does not alter a child's development. What matters, as developmental psychologist Ed Tronick's research on attunement and repair consistently showed, is the overall pattern. The question is not whether you get it right every night. The question is what your baby's nervous system has learned to expect when the light goes low and the world gets quiet. When you understand that, something shifts. The bedtime routine stops being a task on a list that you either complete or don't. It becomes something you recognize for what it is, the one moment in the entire day that belongs completely to the two of you. The dishes can wait, the inbox can wait. For 20 minutes, in a dark room, with a small person who is learning what safety feels like, you are doing something that cannot be replicated later or made up for elsewhere. You are being the external nervous system your baby is borrowing while theirs is still being built. The research on what this builds over time is worth sitting with. Studies from the Minnesota Longitudinal Study of Risk and Adaptation, which followed children from infancy through adulthood, found that the consistency and warmth of early caregiving, the reliable presence of a regulated adult in the vulnerable moments, was one of the strongest predictors of emotional regulation in adolescence. Children who had been reliably co-regulated in their early years handled stress differently as teenagers. They recovered from difficulty faster. Their cortisol responses were more measured. They were less likely to be overwhelmed by experiences that undid their peers. This is not because they had easier lives. It is because their nervous systems were given, night after night in small, ordinary moments, the experience of coming all the way down and then rising again. They learned at a biological level that high arousal has an end, that the day closes safely, that the person they need is there when the world gets dark. Your baby will not remember the specific songs. They will not remember the particular warmth of being held in the low light while you finish the last page of a board book they had already heard 40 times. Memory does not work that way in infancy. What they will carry forward is not the memory but the knowledge, the embodied, unshakable sense that this is what safety feels like, that the people who love them show up in the quiet moments, not just the loud ones, that the end of the day is something to rest into, not brace against. There will be nights when you get it wrong, when you are too tired or too depleted to be the calm presence your baby needs. Those nights are part of it too. What your baby needs is not a parent who never misses a beat. They need a parent who comes back, who repairs, who shows up the next night with the same song and the same warmth, teaching them through the accumulation of ordinary evenings that love is not a performance, it is a practice. One that happens in the dark, in the quiet, in the completely unremarkable moment when you hold a small person against your chest and let your calm be theirs. That is enough. That has always been enough. Thank you so much for being here until the very end. It means everything. If this video changed how you see bedtime even a little, please share it with another parent who needs to hear it. Check out the videos on your screen now. I think you'll love them. And subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you in the next one.